And I'm Sam Danley, Associate Editor of QSR and FSR magazines, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, sponsored by Patronics. I think every brand out there wants the kind of loyalty that you can't buy, and Kettleman's Bagel is a great example of that. So today we are pulling back the curtain on how one of Canada's most iconic regional QSR brands has built a cult following over the past 3 decades while preparing for franchise growth. You're going to hear about the marketing philosophy, community building, and storytelling that have made Kettlemans not just a bagel shop, but a cultural institution. But first, I have just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Number one, a recording of this session will be linked at qsrmagazine.com. You can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Also, we will be answering audience questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free and in fact encouraged to submit a question in the Q&A box at any time. And if needed, you can expand the slides on your screen with the icon widget in the top right corner of the slide widget. And lastly, if you happen to run into any problems with the platform, we suggest refreshing your browser and closing other apps or tabs. You can also click on Help in the top menu for troubleshooting steps. And now to begin. We are joined today by Emma Latreille. Emma is the marketing and communications leader for Kettleman's Bagel, where she leads brand growth, social media, and communications. With over 3 years building Kettleman's voice across channels, she is now at the center of the brand's expansion into franchising. And with that, I will turn things over to her to get started. Take it away, Emma.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, we'll just kind of talk about how we've built the legacy for over 32 years. As mentioned, my name is Emma, and I lead the communications and marketing at Kettlemans. So yeah, a little bit about us. So Kettlemans was founded in 1993 here in Ottawa, Canada. So for over 3 decades, we focused on the core product, which is a traditional Montreal bagels. So what makes that product unique is that it's still made the same way today. So that's hand rolled, baked in our wood fire oven, and then also made fresh in front of our guests. We've grown from a single location across Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, and then we are going to open our first franchise in Kingston in 2027. So some exciting things to come. Beyond the restaurant, we've also expanded into digital ordering, delivery platforms, catering, and then retail, which gives our guests multiple ways to engage with the brands. So the business started with one oven on Bank Street, which is a very well-known street in Ottawa, with one simple idea, and that was to do one thing extremely well. So from day one, our focus was consistency, quality, and community. And those were basically the principle of the foundation for the brand today. So what's interesting is that might look like a constraint, but actually having a narrow product focus actually becomes the competitive advantage over time. So because you're consistent, people know exactly what to expect, and that builds a lot of trust with your guests. Instead of chasing any trends and stuff like that, we've built a brand that strengthens through discipline. So what a cult brand looks like. When we say cult brand, this is actually what we mean. So we've seen very strong unit performance of over 5 million from a single location, which reflects both demand and operational efficiency. But the more telling metrics is our turnover rate. So we have about 37%, which is really good compared to the industry, which is 90%. And this is so important, especially in hospitality, because that means that we retain knowledge, consistency, and culture. We've also built a really strong visibility through community recognition, like media, industry presence. A strong brand isn't just what our guests see, but it's also what's happening internally. So one of the most powerful things about Kettlemans is the product and how we get to see it in our stores. So we have a open concept kitchen, which means that our guests get to see everything that goes behind, which is actually an interesting concept. And I think it also builds trust with their customers. So they're able to see the whole entire process of us making the bagel. So that goes from making the dough, rolling it, kettling it, baking it, tossing that into the shoe. And then they also get to see the other side of it, which is our team making our orders. So you get to see the whole sandwich building process, them collecting any piece for your sides, like chips, tater tots, and everything like that. So the fact that they're able to see this whole entire process is what creates the overall sensory experience. People are able to see it, smell it, and then also connect with the process. Obviously, naturally, that becomes content. People get very excited that they're able to see that. So they tend to take a lot of videos and then they'll share it on social media. And then they'll also tell their friends, which drives, generally speaking, organic awareness. So, with that said, we also layer in some seasonal and limited time offerings, which help keeps the experience fresh and give people a reason to talk about Kettlemans regularly. When your product experience is so strong, it reduces your reliance on having to use paid advertising. So, earned attention. We've built a lot of our growth through earned attention rather than paid media. So, that includes like anniversary promotions. So, just last year, we turned 32. And so, with that, we did 32-cent bagels and we earned a lot of media with that. We posted a lot of social content as well, which was all organic. None of it was paid. And it was our way of saying thank you to our loyal customers who have been coming to Kettlemans since we opened. And whether that was a new location in Toronto that opened 5 years ago, they've been with us for that whole process, and without them we wouldn't be where we are today. So it was a thank you to them. So we were able to kind of provide a lot of media attention with that. The other one that we've done was the $1 bagel, and we always do that in January. As we know, a lot of the time after Christmas, January and February tend to be very slow months in the restaurant industry. So, with that, we usually try to increase foot traffic. And so, that was one of the ways that we've tried to increase it. And it was with a product that we know our customer loves, which is our bagels. But also, it's like a thank you to them. They just went through a very busy season. And a lot of the times in December, people spend a lot of money. So, one way that we kind of give back to our community is to reduce the price of some of our products where we can. And that gains a lot of attention from media because it is something that we're doing for them. The other thing that we did was find the gold, win the dough. So internally, our goal was to boost our cream cheese sales and just bring more general awareness towards the fact that we make in-house cream cheese. So we had the idea of the whole with St. Patrick's. Obviously, we have a lot of golds, but the idea was to have a gold sticker under one of our labels to make it food safe for cream cheese. And then it created a sense of competition within our guests. People were buying the cream cheese a lot more. So it gained a lot of attention on social media without having to boost anything, which is great. So a lot of these campaigns were designed to feel more community driven rather than transactional. Obviously, we've also run a lot of smaller and more creative activation that generates engagement without needing a huge budget for it. Community investment is so important because when you show up consistently, people start advocating for you. So just to talk a little bit more about our culture, so this is kind of what makes us a little bit more different. So we operate with a culture first mindset. In this business, especially in QSR, the team is directly what shapes guest experience, and that's a huge thing. That is what keeps your sales going. If you have a poor customer experience, obviously it is not ideal. But when you have a really strong team and you care for your team, that reflects to our guests, and our guests have in turn a very positive experience, and then they continue to come back, and then they trust your brands. So with our team, we invest in a lot of things like recognition, consistent schedule, and opportunities for internal growth. We also use a thing called state interviews, which means we proactively ask our team what keeps them here instead of waiting until they leave. We've even had team members who's been with us for over 20 years. So it really goes to show you that we care very much about our team. Obviously, retention is a cost advantage, but it's also an advantage for your brand. It shows that your team believes in what you are building. And when you have guests who are returning back all the time, they are returning customers, they see that the same team there. So obviously that helps build trust in your business. So to talk a little bit about our loyalty program, we recently joined Patronics about a year ago, and that was a really exciting switch for me. I was very excited. But we introduced rolling rewards, which is a key part about how we've been building a long-term relationship with our guests. It allows customers to earn points and rewards in a way that feels integrated to their regular experience. So it also plays such an important role in scaling because it standardizes how we engage with our guests across every location. So just to go into a little bit more depth, so the main idea on this slide, I know there's a lot of information, but the main idea is really to shift our ideas towards more data-driven decision making. So with Patronics, we're now able to track how guests interact with the brands. Prior to joining Patronics, we had a lot of data that we were not able to collect. So now that we are with Patronics, I'm able to collect data from our customers and understand when they're coming to visit Kettlemans, what are they purchasing? Are there items that are being purchased more than others? And then what are their frequency of them coming into the store? Are they also coming into the store and using their app, or are they placing app orders, or are they asking for it for delivery? So we get to collect all of these data points, which are really key into how we want to plan our marketing, especially for the app. So like I was saying, this allows us to segment our audience and create more targeted campaigns. It also allows us to do a little bit more testing, so we can test out different messaging with different groups of people and see which type of messaging or wording resonates with them the most. That way we're able to really build our email marketing as good as possible for who we're trying to target. We're also able to communicate directly with our guests in a more personalized and timely way. We get real-time guest feedback on our app. So as soon as someone places an app order and picks it up, they receive a survey directly through their phone, and then we're able to get feedback right away on how their experience was. That also goes directly to our store managers, and they're able to actively fix anything or able to share any feedback with their team to prevent any of these further issues to come down the line or throughout the day. So instead of doing broad marketing pieces, we tend to do more precise engagement with them, with our team. So the in-store experience is obviously still the foundation of the brand, since it's always super important, but it's not the only touch point we have with our guests. So guests are able to interact with us through multiple channels. So they're able to interact with us through our loyalty, so our app. They also are able to interact with us through our delivery platform, catering, and then also in retail, since we're found in Costco, Farm Boy, and Sobeys. So each of these channels extend the relationship with our customers, but in different ways. So digital doesn't replace the physical experience, but it amplifies it. So for the digital experience, so this slide basically, again, a lot of information, but the slide breaks down the digital support, the guest experiences overall. So the focus is making one experience seamless and intuitive. So the first part is integration. So our rewards are built directly into the ordering journey. You want to make it as easy as possible for your guests to be able to take advantage of the rewards, but also make it part of their routine. They want to be able to attain it in a way that is easy for them without them breaking the bank for it. You just want to make sure that it's really well integrated into your app. Obviously, data is another key point. We gain a lot more visibility into our guest behavior, which is super important as you're trying to build your brands and then just continue into the expansion. And then the other important part is feedback. So the feedback that we get is real time. Like I was saying, our guests are able to submit feedback right away through the app once they've placed their order. And that's super important. Guest feedback is the probably one of the most important part of all of that. So that being said, it gives us a more complete and connected view of our guest journey. So, on to talking a little bit about franchising. So, after 32 years, we've reached a point where the brand is ready to look into franchising. But obviously, that requires building strong operational and marketing systems first. So, that includes brand standards, training, and then support infrastructure. So, franchising isn't just about the growth, but it's also a test to whether the brand can be replicated consistently. So, what changes when you franchises and what doesn't change? So, obviously, as you scale, it becomes critical to define what evolves and what stays the same. So, for Kettlemans, we've decided that some core elements like the product, the quality, and the brand identity, so our bagels and what makes us us, is what needs to remain consistent from our corporate stores and then also as we go into franchising because that is what makes us Kettlemans and that's what we're known for. Systems like training and marketing processes are obviously what are going to be scaled as we continue to expand. And then there's also some complexities like the bilingual market that require more careful strategy. So, for example, in our corporate locations currently, our marketing strategies and communication may be slightly different for our Montreal location since it's French and they have a bit of a slightly different culture. And then also, it will be different than what we have for our Ontario stores. The important part when you're going to expand, especially into franchising, is really about maintaining consistency while allowing for local relevance. And just to talk about a few key takeaways from all of this would be to one, protect what makes your brand different because that is what drives growth. To share a little bit of an example. So in Montreal, we offer, obviously, that is the house or the land of Montreal bagels. And coming from a Ontario brand into Montreal was a very difficult thing to do, but we were very excited and we were up for the challenge. And what made us different is that we offered a close-up experience of everything that we have to offer. So you got to see the open concept kitchen. We offered in-house seating, which some other local bagel shops did not necessarily offer. So you have to really do what stands out about your brands, and that's what you have to focus on. Community. The second takeaway is community isn't a tactic, but it's a long-term strategy. And the last one is your team is your brand, especially in hospitality. Your team is everything. Your team is, if you take care of your team, that reflects on the floor and your guests are able to see that. If your team members are looking a little bit miserable, the guests are able to see that. But if your team enjoy the culture and are happy to come into work every single day, that reflects with your customers. And then they also see that there is a sense of loyalty for the guests, for the team that are there. And then your guests are able to see that and able to continue to trust your brand and continue to come visit you. And so all of these things consistently come back as we continue to grow. And then I will turn it back to Sam for some Q&A.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Emma. Yeah, looks like we've got some audience questions that have come in. we'll start making our way through those. Feel free to keep sending them in as we go through the Q&A for anyone out there. All right. So the first one, someone wants to know, for a regional QSR brand thinking about its first steps towards franchise expansion, what do you wish you had known earlier about how marketing needs to evolve to support that transition?
Great question. I think it's just to really know your brands and kind of pick what you are focusing on. And to, even though you're expanding, it doesn't mean that your marketing necessarily general idea needs to expand as well. It's to focus on what is truly important to yourselves and then just scale it on a bigger scale for all of those restaurants. But the key thing is to really know what is your brand and what makes it so different and what is important to you. And then from there, you're able to kind of scale it to a bigger one to kind of cover everybody. But at the end of the day, just remember who you are as a brand and don't lose yourself just because you're expanding.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's see here. So we this one, someone's asking about the bagel product itself. Someone says, regarding the bagel product, are they boiled during the prep process?
They are. They're actually boiled in what looks like a witch's thing. They're pretty big. It's like a big cauldron. And we actually add honey into it, which kind of gives it its like crispy, sweet exterior once it's baked. But yes, they do get boiled. That's part of the process of the bagel making thing. But yeah, it enhances some of their flavors as well. So yeah.
Cool, cool. I love it. So we have a couple of people come in the chat as well and just ask about your presence in the United States, if you guys have any stores in the US or if you have like USA markets available for franchising. I figured we can address a couple of
Yes.
questions there with that one.
Of course, yeah. So at this time, we're only in Canada. So we're only in Ontario and then in Quebec, so in Montreal. The US market is obviously very appealing. And so eventually, I think it is in our franchising growth plan to go into the US. We do have a franchise website where you can put in some like submissions or requests to kind of own some franchising down the line. And then obviously, like the US is, like I said, a market that we would like to go into. So if there's any interest there, more than happy to have that conversation there for you guys.
Awesome. Great. Okay, this one's really interesting to me as well. So someone wants to know, what type of percent spend did you dedicate to your first store to get it off the ground and established in the community? No, that one might be kind of hard to answer, but I thought it raised just kind of an interesting topic. I'd be curious to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Yes. So unfortunately, for the first store, I was not born yet. So I don't know what the percentage of spend was at the time. Um, I think it was just one of the biggest thing for the very first location we had was that it was a very small store. I think it created a sense of community. And we had a lot of locals that kept coming. I think the fact that we were also open 24/7, which we've continued through across a lot of our stores currently, was that we tapped into a lot of different like groups of guests. So people who were ending at the bar late at night, like they were coming like at night and stuff like that. So we were able to kind of build our guests more like our following, I guess, like by being open 24/7 and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have like the best answer for that. But I think it's just also being there for the community. So I think at the time, and it's something that we've also still continue, is to be there. We donate a lot of our bagels as well. And is to find ways to really get there, and we've do a lot of outreach. People will also reach back out to us and ask us to participate with donations or just different local events. And that was something that we've done right from the beginning. So we've really maintained that. And especially as you kind of continue to grow and you go into these new markets, establishing yourself in the community by donations or participating in local events or things like that is kind of what makes it important. Yeah, I'm not sure if that really fully answers the question. I hope it gives a bit more insight, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that was great. Yeah, thank you for that for sure. Uh, okay, let's see. We've got some more questions in the queue here. Someone else wants to know. They say this brand has a genuinely passionate following across Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal. How much of that loyalty is the product itself versus the experience? And how does your marketing strategy reflect that balance?
ooh, that's a great question. I want to say it's both. I think people have learned to really love our products. We get a lot of people who grew up in Ottawa and then eventually move out of the city and go to Toronto, and they're like, we haven't been able to find any bagels that are as good as yours. And then when we finally grew more and expanded out into Toronto, they were so excited because they were able to enjoy a product that they loved and like grew up on. And then I think on the other hand, it is a lot about the experience and stuff like that. I think um, it is so cool to be able to come into a store and see that whole entire process. A lot of people nowadays, especially with social media, are kind of not as transparent with some of their things, whether it's like influencers with their personal life or whatever it may be. And the fact that they're able to come into our stores and be able to see the entire process, see all of our team working, um, even just making like the sandwiches as well, because they are able to see that too. I think it shows a lot to the guest. But at the end of the day, I think it's a bit of a 50-50 of like, yes, it is very much like the quality of our product. We have not changed the recipe since we've opened. The recipe has stayed the same. So guests know that they are still getting the same high quality bagel they were getting 32 years ago. They're still able to get that. But then it's also about the overall experience. We also create an atmosphere at our store. So I think it is a bit of a 50-50 there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, great. Someone else wants to know. Let's see. Okay, this one's kind of getting into what you're talking about, like earned versus paid media. Someone says Kettlemans generates real press coverage and organic social momentum without a massive marketing budget. Can you talk more about the philosophy behind earning that kind of attention rather than buying it?
Um, I think the more organic it is, the more natural it tends to be. Sometimes when it is paid media, it can feel a little bit more forced. We obviously do some paid media. It is not that we don't do it. Obviously, we do it with some influencers. But when I look at influencers for paid media in that like style of like marketing, I'm very careful about who I pick. I do a lot of research on who these influencers are and stuff like that. And then also when I share a brief of what I want to see from them, I make sure that I let them know to keep it as authentic as possible. I'll give them some key notes of what I want them to kind of talk about. But in general, I let it be as authentic to them as as much as possible because that is what makes it natural. And I want to see when I'm scrolling TikTok or Instagram, I want to see someone that looks like genuinely excited about a product and stuff like that. You never want it to feel forced because then you can tell that it was a paid sponsorship. I think in terms of earning it is just to do things that are fun or a little bit more out there, like 32-cent bagels. Like no one has heard of something that was that cheap in a very long time. So I think the fact that we did that just will naturally kind of increase the natural media that we'll get picked up for. I think also just the fact that we were celebrating 32 years just naturally got a lot of attention. And I think when you're a local institution that has a big cult following in certain areas, like especially in Ottawa, naturally will just get more attention than if we were celebrating maybe 2 years in Toronto, right? So just different things like that. Neither one of them is necessarily wrong. I think when you do paid media, you just want to be a lot more mindful about how you're going about it. And then just like I was kind of saying about the influencers, you just want to make sure that even though you're paying for it, that it still seems authentic to your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like there can be a place for both. It's not necessarily all one or all the other directions, a little bit of, and it's, what that balance looks like is going to be different for each brand. All right, let's see. We got another one in here. I think this might be the last one we have, but if anyone else out there has some questions, feel free to toss them in there. Okay, this one's kind of coming back to franchising. As Kettlemans moves into franchising, what are the non-negotiables you're building into the brand standards to make sure the guest experience doesn't get lost in the process of scaling?
Great question. Obviously, in the restaurant industry, we've saw at some point, especially like kind of a bit after COVID, guest service decline a little bit. So we've really made sure that that was like top of mind for everything. We've always been a big believer of if guests have a great experience and something may be messed up with their order, like maybe it's the wrong sauce, maybe it's the wrong bagel, whatever it may be. If they received great guest service, um, they'll remember the great service more than they'll remember their order kind of being messed up. So we've made sure that like a lot of that is like at the forefront when we're creating training documents for our team for the franchises. We've also made sure that all of like certain communication is all handled by our head office. We haven't offloaded a lot of it to our franchisees. That way we're able to keep brand consistency across it. Another thing is that we vet every franchise before we go ahead and like sign them. And we also make sure to reinforce that customer service is a huge part of it. And that it's very, very important to maintain that throughout like the brand. So yeah, I don't know if that fully really answers the question. But yeah, we made it a big focal point. And then we also share like our big four with them as well. And we have posters and stuff like that. So we make sure that our big four, which is like the philosophy and our vision and stuff like that, is shared with our guests. And so since we take care of all the marketing, those posters are going to be found across all of the franchisees. So that is guest facing. They're able to see all of that. And so their team at the franchise level will have to implement all of these things. So that being said, we've made sure that like it's not that our guests won't be able to tell the difference between what is one of our corporate stores and what is a franchise store.
Yeah, yeah, great. All right, Emma. Well, I think that just about does it for our Q&A portion. I do want to make sure to mention both Patronics and Kettlemans will get a list of all the questions submitted. So if you ask something that didn't get brought up during the presentation, there you might get a follow-up after the fact from that as well. All right. So before I sign us off for today, Emma, any final thoughts, anything else you want to make sure to say before I wrap us up here?
I just want to say thank you. And then if your brand is going into franchising, I wish you all the best of luck. It is definitely a challenging process, but also very, very exciting. But yeah, I just want to say thank you and enjoy the process. It's fun. But yeah, thank you
Yeah.
again.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much, Emma. And that indeed will include our program for today. On behalf of QSR Magazine, I would like to extend our many thanks to Patronics, our sponsor, for making today's webinar possible, to everyone in the audience for attending and asking your questions, and of course to Emma for taking us through it all. I also want to encourage everyone to fill out our survey questions. Tell us a bit about your experience today. And as a final reminder, a recording of this program will be linked on qsrmagazine.com. You can also use today's login link to view it at any time. Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.